Hey, welcome back. I'm reading you some more amazing women in science, and this is from the book 101 Awesome Women Who Transformed Science. It's a wonderful book. If you can afford it, you should go get it. It's a great thing to have in your personal library if you can't afford it. I'm about to read them to you. So the first today is Elizabeth Garrett Anderson. She was a doctor, and she lived from 1836 to 1917. Elizabeth Garrett Anderson went to a good school and was expected to marry well. Yet after meeting Elizabeth Blackwell, the first American doctor, she decided to study medicine. Like Blackwell, she was met with resistance. After Elizabeth passed her exams at the Society of Apothecaries, they changed the rules so that other women couldn't follow her path. In 1870, she became a visiting physician at the East London Hospital. After marrying, she learned French so she could gain a medical degree at the University of Paris. Sadly, her qualification wasn't recognized in Britain. Elizabeth refused to give in to prejudice, and eventually, in 1876, the laws were changed so that women could become medical professionals. This is Margaret Huggins, an astrophysicist. She lived from 1848 to 1915. Margaret and her husband, William, are often described as the founders of astrophysics, the branch of science that applies to the law of physics to the study of stars, and celestial bodies. Together, they contributed greatly to the world of astronomy, yet it is only recently that Margaret's own input has been recognized. She downplayed how involved she was in order to promote William's public image and avoid criticism for being a woman in science. Yet Margaret was a talented astronomer with a keen interest in photography and spectroscopy. She even made her own spectroscope. Sofia Kovalevskaya, a mathematician. Sofia was the first Russian female mathematician to gain a doctorate from a European university. At an early age, she studied mathematics, inspired by the walls of her room, which were covered with papers from her father's day as a student. Sofia's gender made it difficult for her to further her education in Russia, yet she persevered, marrying so that she could travel and move to Berlin. Here she studied mathematics, wrote papers, and was eventually awarded her doctorate. In 1880, she began teaching at the University of Stockholm, and 6 years later she was awarded a professorship. Her strong spirit and will to continue led to her acceptance. This is Hertha Ayrton, an inventor. She lived from 1854 to 1923. Hertha became a respected scientist and inventor at a time when women were fighting to be part of the academic world. Her early years were spent in her aunt's school, where she learned French, music, Latin, and mathematics. While working as a governess, she attended women's suffrage meetings where she met her mentor, Barbara Lee Smith Bodicon, the co-founder of Girton College, Cambridge. Hertha so impressed Bodicon that she was admitted to read mathematics. Hertha then entered the world of science. She was the first woman to be a member of the Institution of Electrical Engineers and registered more than 20 patents. One of her most significant inventions was a fan that could remove toxic gases used in World War I to disperse mustard gas. So she protected our soldiers. The next is Florence Bascom. She was a geologist, and she lived from 1862 to 1945. Florence Bascom was a highly successful American geologist, the first woman to receive a PhD from Johns Hopkins University, and the second to receive one for geology in the U.S. She was also the first woman to be employed by the USGS, the United States Geological Survey, and her revolutionary influence can be seen in the great number of other women that entered into the world of earth sciences following in her path. Her early years were influenced by forward-thinking parents who encouraged her to study at a time when it was very difficult for women to enter further education. Indeed, during her PhD, where she examined the formation of the Appalachian Mountain Range, Florence had to sit behind a screen in case she distracted her fellow male students. Florence carved a name for herself regardless, and she became widely known for mapping of the rock formations in the states of Pennsylvania, Maryland, and New Jersey in the United States. She also utilized a relatively new field of geology, analyzing thin sections of rocks using microscopes and light. Florence's passion can be seen in her own accounts of her work. For example, she described the fascination of her search for truth as coming from the pursuit of the study itself. Where all the powers of the mind are absorbed in the task, one feels oneself in contact with something that is infinite, and one finds a joy that is beyond expression in sounding the abyss of science and the secrets of the infinite mind. I have considerable pride in the fact that some of the best work done in geology today by women, ranking with that done by men, has been done by my students. She went on to have a successful career and in 1894 was elected to the Geological Society of America. In 1906, she was named as one of the top 100 leading geologists in the very first issue of American Men of Science, and was the first woman to be elected to the Council of the Geological Society of America in 1924. Florence also founded the geology department at Bryn Mawr College, the first in the U.S. to offer an education to PhD level for women. She taught there for more than 30 years and was actively involved in ongoing research, as well as writing prolifically on her topic. An asteroid, a lake, and a crater have all been named after her in recognition of her incredible work. The next woman is Annie Jump Cannon, and she was an astronomer. She lived from 1863 to 1941. Annie Jump Cannon, nicknamed the census taker of the sky, was an amazing scientist in the field of astronomy and is one of the leading female astronomers of all time. She was also an outspoken advocate of women's rights. Her love of astronomy was initially inspired by her mother's love of the night sky, and as a child, she would watch the stars from her attic. She later studied physics and astronomy at college in the U.S. at a time when it was still difficult for women to get ahead in the world of science. Classifying the stars has helped materially in all studies of the structure of the universe. She was extremely driven to achieve, stating that I am sometimes very dissatisfied with life here. I do want to accomplish something so badly. Annie became an assistant at the Harvard Observatory in 1896 after her mother's death, studying under Edward C. Pickering, the director at the time. With Pickering, she worked to record and classify stars for the Henry Draper catalog of stellar spectra in a team of talented female assistants. The current system was incredibly complex, so Annie eventually developed her own classification method using letters of the alphabet. Annie based her system on star temperatures, and this new approach of stellar spectra classification impressed many astronomers. It was universally adopted in 1922, and it is still in use today. Amazingly, Annie classified more than 300,000 stars, discovering around 300 herself. In recognition of her vast contribution, she was awarded an honorary doctorate from the University of Oxford, England, in 1925. No other woman has been granted this award. Annie became the curator of astronomical photographs for Harvard Observatory in 1911, and in 1938 was given the official title of astronomer at Harvard, yet another first for a woman in her field. Her amazing career is rightfully remembered for her dedication to her love of astronomy and her support of fellow women scientists, reportedly commenting that it is hard to conceive of a time when mathematical or other scientific study by girls was so shocking to the conceptions of mankind that she must need do all her studies secretly at night with a candle by her bedside.